Hey guys, Pansy here and welcome to my Mystic Succession Guide. In this video, we're going to talk about why you should play Mystic, the mechanics behind Mystic. I'm going to go over 2 DPS rotations with the add-ons. We're going to talk about the build and everything in between. Before we begin, I just want to remind you guys, over 72% of you guys are not subscribed to my channel. We are beating that number down, but we're so close to getting into sub 60. So please do hit that sub button. Drop a like and a comment if you enjoy this video and you find it helpful. Hit the bell icon so you get notifications when I drop a new video. Also, I stream on twitch.tv/I'mPansy, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. And if you want to support me, the best way to do so is to share this video with your friends and on Discord. All right, why you should play Mystic. Mystic is my #1 waifu. She is one of my favorite classes in the game, very quick and responsive. I love the rhythm to her, both Succession and Awakening. She's really formidable in 1v1s. She's not S tier because she lacks mechanical advantages like, for example, facing a ninja's block jump, it's really hard to play against. But otherwise, she's really well protected and she's a really good class to play for 1v1s and small scale. She has really good burst damage in the form of combos. Her grab is on a 6-second cooldown and puts the enemy on the floor really quick. So overall, she's a very formidable class. In terms of grinding in PVE, she is upper middle of the pack. I'd say she's A tier. In Elvia, you can push to the A+ ranking because there's a lot of variables involved, a lot of skill required to min-max your output in Elvia grinding. But overall, excellent class to play. If she's something you're interested in, definitely give her a shot. She has a basic rotation as well as an advanced rotation that I'm going to show you guys. So it's not too difficult to pick up. It might take a little bit of understanding, but overall, I think she's a pretty good class to have because when I started playing her, I was able to go to higher end spots sooner because she has such good protection. So 235 AP, 305 DP going into Kratuga. Normally, that's a very risky thing to do, but because her protections were so good, I was able to capitalize on it and do pretty well. All right, guys, we're going to start off with the mechanics of Mystic. So Mystic is a class where there's certain innate mechanics which are unique to it. One is going to be Martial Spirit Shard, just like the Striker, but she's more reliant on this. Her damage output is based on combos and getting 3 shards and using a finisher. So your entire rotation is going to be revolving around generating these shards and then dumping these shards. Now, that's the playstyle of Mystic. If you want something which doesn't really care about it other than buffing yourself, then you want to play a Striker. But otherwise, if you want to play something combo oriented, that's where you play Mystic. Now, there's a few things you got to remember with the shards. There are certain skills which will consume this. So the finishes are Rage Hammer, Wave Orb, Roaring Tiger, and Sea Burial. When you have 3 shards, they will consume all 3 shards, but do a lot more bonus damage. For example, let's take a look at Rage Hammer. We see here at the first row, it says 1468 times 6. That's if you use it without the 3 shards, and if you use it with the 3 shards, it does 1644 times 8 and consumes all 3 of the shards. So that's really huge damage, and the difference is really noticeable, so that's why you play around it. Now, your dash can also consume the shards. So if you run out of initial dashes, then it'll start consuming them. So Flash Step, obviously it's on a 4-second cooldown. Because you're playing Succession, you can use them multiple times in a row. But once you consume the initial charges, it'll start using shards instead, like this. So when you're going between pack to pack, that's fine. You want to try to keep at least 1 shard active when you start off with your pack, because having 1 shard allows you to consume it with Crouching Wolf, and it gives you 20% attack speed, which is really important. So as you can see here, that's 20%. That's huge. So make sure you do that or keep that in mind. All right, now let's talk about the mechanic of additional shards being generated. So certain skills have this text on the skill. If you look at the bottom, it says additional shard recovered per hit when more than a certain number of skills are chained together. So you see this in quite a few skills. You see it on Soul Basher, Thunder Pound, Hidden Claw, Fist Fury, Tornado Kick. You don't use Sweeping Kick in DPS rotations, but there too. So those skills all have them. This is a unique mechanic to Mystic, so it prioritizes chaining the skills together. So using them in quick succession, one after the other. And when Mystic first came out, she was pretty clunky with Succession, but they actively look to improve the chaining of the skills together to get it to the state it's at right now. So this is a really important mechanic, which you don't have to think about. It'll be in play while doing the rotation, but you might wonder why you're only using 2 skills to generate 3 shards, but sometimes you'll be using 3 skills to generate 3 shards. It's not always 1-to-1. So that's something I wanted to let you know. All right, let's talk a little bit about animation cancels for Mystic. Just follow my DPS guides if you want. The animation cancels are built into it, so I still wanted to cover it just to show what they're actually doing. For example, Hidden Claw and Fist Fury, they have this backward motions to them. So it's really wonky and it looks weird. It feels weird when you first start playing Mystic and she keeps going back and forth like that. Now, I understand that it's really annoying and you might not want to touch it and you just settle for using elbow edge, but one of my rotations is going to utilize the animation cancel for that. So after Tornado Kick, so when you use Soul Basher, keep holding F, you proc Tornado Kick, you can animation cancel Hidden Claw, for example, like this. So instead of going backwards, she just stood there and started punching that guy. Also, for example, after Thunder Pound, you can use Fist Fury and it'll cut off the initial punching animation like that and go straight to the last hit. So that's also really good. Let me show you here. Like that. So Fist Fury is going to be used in multiple spots. Another animation cancel I like to use that I'm not going to be showing in the DPS rotations here, but it's something that you got to keep in mind when you're grinding as a Succession Mystic. She's a very quick class. She's really snappy and very mobile. So you want to be able to use that to your advantage to constantly get that back hits in, because that's huge damage. For example, if I have 3 shards, I'm about to use Prime Wave Orb. I like getting behind the target using Silent Step. Now, I know that's not a popular skill to do. People like to use Dash instead, but Silent Step is pretty perfect for doing that, in my opinion. So, for example, I'm fighting a mob, then I have 3 shards ready to go. I want to use it, get behind like that, and then I use Wave Orb. So little things like that do add up for more damage. And when you're trying to min-max and try to do the highest amount of DPS and pull the most amount of trash, you want to capitalize on all of these. So there's multiple animation cancels for Mystic. Just follow my DPS rotations. They have those built into it, but I just want to let you guys know when you're starting to get into PvP and such, that's really important because there's a lot of skills that animation cancel. For example, Elbow Edge, it's a very unique skill. While it's not protected, it helps you cover a lot of ground. For example, that mob straight over there, I use my dashes and I can extend that dash using Elbow's Edge. So that's also one of those little skills that really can make a difference. I've caught people off guard with that so many times. We both say ready and then suddenly I'm right in their face and I grab them. So there's a lot of things that Mystic can do. You can even like dash in and immediately go into Fist of Fury, which I never do for PvP because it's unprotected and there's a bit of a delay for that knockdown, but you can also dash in Wave Orb, and there's a multitude of cancels and combinations that you can come up with for Succession Mystic. But anyway, for this video, you don't need to know all of those. Just follow my DPS rotations and keep an eye out for them. Make sure you get your practice in, get the muscle memory down in order to pull those animation cancels out, because if you're a step behind, sometimes they don't work. All right, guys, now for the skill build for Succession Mystic. Make sure you have Succession selected on top. We're going to pick all the essential skills and then come back and pick the rest of them. All right, we're going to start off with Soul Basher, then Thunder Pound with Shackling Chain. That's important for the evasion debuff. Somersault. I don't really take Dash Buster because I feel the animation's a DPS loss, but it does have an evasion debuff on it as well. Hidden Claw, take Prime. So I don't really use the flows here, so you can ignore those for now. Fist of Fury, Prime, definitely. Twisted Collision is really good for canceling before doing Sea Burial, but in my DPS rotations, I don't use that. So we'll leave it out for now. Now, as for Elbow Edge, it's really good to have. So we're going to get the absolute version, then Flow Tornado Kick is awesome. So we're gonna need that for Prime. Leaping Kick is unnecessary for PvE, so we're not gonna take it. Roaring Tiger, Prime, Rage Hammer, Prime. Rage Hammer is one of our best finisher skills. It's amazing. Obviously, we're going to take the Succession skills down here. Max out the mobility here. Wolf's Frenzy, while it does have a 30 monster AP add-on, the tier 3 add-on, unfortunately, it's just so unreliable to use in PvE. And it's a waste of DPS, so we're going to ignore that. Prime Scissors Kick, it's not essential. We can leave that out for now. I do use it for PvP, but that's really rare because it doesn't have protection. I usually go with this version, but you know, personal preference if you do need that DPS. But anyway, Prey Hunt, definitely need it. And Take Your Grab, that's a bread and butter of Mystic. Infinite Mastery, Skilled Hunter, Mountain Aura, obviously. And Prime Mountain Flow, now Prime Mountain Aura. So that pretty much covers the essential for Succession. Now, Now taking a look at the skill enhancement for the Rabam skills. To pick up the Rabam skills, we're going to have to go back and pick up other skills in order to unlock them. I don't really use Unbridled Wrath ever in PvE, not even in PvP for Succession. Nature's Wrath gives you the 12% accuracy buff as well as the magic DP, which is huge. So we want to unlock that. So in order to unlock that, we need triple kick 5. There we go. Next up is Fist of True Strengths add-ons, which is going to be Iron Fist of Fury or Perfect Blow. Iron Fist of Fury I feel is a bit slow. So while it does have a super armor, I've always preferred Perfect Blow. It's a personal preference, but for PvE, you don't need this, so I'm going to leave this out. We're taking Nature's Wrath purely for that accuracy buff, which does come into play. Next up, Crouching Wolf. This isn't an add-on that you need either because Raging Wolf, while it's an on-demand attack speed buff, it doesn't stack with the Martial Shard Crouching Wolf consume. So it's also 20% for 10 seconds, just the same as this one. The only advantage is you can use this if you have 0 Martial Shards to start off with your maximum attack speed, which is not necessary in my opinion. So we can leave this out as well for now, but if you want to level up further with your skills, then you can come back and pick it up. And there you go, guys. This is the basic skill build for Succession Mystic. Using this build, you can do both of the DPS rotations that I show you here in this video. You only need 1490 if you're not taking a Rabam skill. If you are taking Nature's Wrath, you only need 1542. And anything else you need after that, you do need more skill points. But this is the bare minimum. You can immediately start grinding any rotation with this, provided you have the gear score. All right, guys, now I'm going to talk about some of the skills that you should lock for Succession Mystic. Not all of the skills are useful, and some of the skills are useful in PvP, but not PvE. It does result in a DPS loss. So let's get to it. The first skill I want to talk about is Adamantine. You don't have to lock this, but if you do decide to, that's perfectly fine. I personally lock it because I accidentally hit it sometimes. I like to take it and put it on my hotbar though, even though it's locked, so I can use it as a forward guard, so in a defensive manner. All the follow-up skills, these hit really weak and they don't have any protection until you get to recoil slam. It's just not worth it, so I ignore them completely. Moving on to Thunder Pound. The follow-ups for Thunder Pound are also locked. Hurricane is unprotected, so I don't like having that open. All of the remaining flows are very weak, unprotected, and unnecessary in PvE, so I locked those. Then coming down to Somersault. I do use Somersault in PvE, however, I do not use Dash Buster, so I like to lock this. Now, let me just show you how to use Dash Buster properly. So like when you're in PvP and you want to keep it open just to close the gap that you create by doing Somersault, that's fine. And there is a super armor involved. However, it goes right into Hidden Claw, so that super armor gets canceled out really quick. If you notice, it just blinked away. So what you want to do is you can linger it if you want to use it. However, I never found a use for this. There are better skills in our arsenal that give us better super armors and are on really low cooldown like Soul Basher, right? So it's completely unnecessary in my opinion, but just to show you guys and just so you guys know, you can let go and let it linger like this. So anyway, pretty useless in my book, but at least you know. All right, next up is Hidden Claw. Death Strike is never used because in order to activate this, you have to use the entire sequence of Hidden Claw. So I like to lock that. Savage Fang also, same thing, not really used. You don't want to go all the way through Hidden Claw and Death Strike, or you can use it from Adamantine like this, but it's just not necessary in my opinion. I never had any use for it, so locked it. Next up is Twisted Collision. The most common use for this is to cancel into Sea Burial like this. Really useful for that. However, the flows are a bit of an issue. For Sky Rammer and Strike Through, there are a DPS loss, but I like to lock just Strike Through. You can use these in PvP, however, there is a significant gap, so be careful if you do choose to do so. Now, I do like to keep Sky Rammer available in case I need to get down from like a higher point. You can actually get down by using it. You have to hit F while you're in the air with Sea Burial, so you can do it like this. So it lets you drop straight down, and that is kind of useful for me, so I like to keep it around. As for the other skills, you can use them to climb up higher points, like for example with these two, Landslide and Fatal Smash. You can just come to a point where you want to climb up, and you can just go up from here, like this. So it does come into play, especially when I'm at Orcs and I want to do a double rotation. It does help out. So I like to keep those available. However, just locking strike through is more important for me because when I do Sea Burial and I hold down RMB too long, it immediately goes into it, which I do not like it doing, because that's a bit of a delay. Small delay, but it's still a DPS delay nonetheless. Next up, for elbow edge, I definitely lock Grip Crusher. It's pretty useless. For elbow edge, I never hold it out. I only use it for the first hit. And when you click it just once, the first tick does a little double tap on them. Like this, and that's enough to get the debuff going. So that's just one click of my mouse, but it looks like a double attack. So I never use the low for that, so you can just lock that away, and it's pretty useless there. And lastly, obviously, we like to put evasion on lock. We don't need that. Bull's Frenzy, you can lock this if you're accidentally hitting it and you don't like it. I like to keep it open in case I ever get it stuck inside an object or something. I can use it to get out. Otherwise, I don't really use it ever. Even though it does have a add-on to it, you can use it for the tier 3 add-on, but I'd rather just go through the damage rotation because I feel going through that effort is a DPS loss. For Prime Scissor Kick, there's nothing to lock here. However, just want to let you know the base version has a super armor on it and Prime Scissor Kick doesn't, but Prime Scissor Kick does a lot more damage, which we don't use in PvE. I keep it on Prime just to cover distance and do some damage while doing so. However, in PvP, I like to use just the regular base version for the SA. It really helps out. And lastly, you want to lock the Rage Transfer. That's always annoying when you accidentally hit X on a mob or something while grinding. So you can lock these down here, and you'll use the common version for the Z buff. And I think that's about it. As for Mystic's healing skills, there are two primary ways to heal yourself. One, Roaring Tiger, a flat 300 heal, which is pretty good. And next is Fist Fury. This heals us 50 per every hit. So this is also pretty solid for healing. When you're running low on health, and if you get an opportunity, you can hold out Fist Fury, the full skill, not just a cancel. That'll heal you up pretty well. However, just be careful, it's unprotected. So if you're at a tough grind spot or something, be careful of CCs and such. But otherwise, usually potions, Roaring Tiger, and that is the way to go. All right, now time for the gear and the crystals. I know someone in chat's gonna definitely ask about what crystals do I use? What gear do I use? We're not gonna go over exactly which gear to use, what crystal progression to do. I'm just gonna talk to you a little bit about the BIS. And the two builds we do have is Evasion versus DR. DR is going to be Begs with Urgons. Evasion is going to be Libers with Muskins. Now you can also switch out the helmets. You can use Hughes or Fortuna for evasion and Griffins for DR. I highly recommend you go DR in the beginning and switch to evasion if you want when you get pen gears. Now, even at endgame, DR is a really good build. That's where AP monkeys go because you can do a lot more damage with DR build because you have that added accuracy from Begs. That makes a huge difference in PvP and you can really chunk people down. At the same time, if you're facing off someone with similar build, you're going to be taking a lot of damage, and evasion really helps tanking against people who don't have stacked accuracy. Now, for the crystals, I like using the best in slot crystals as always. For the main hand, we're going to be using Elcars. If you don't have Elcars, you can get BMC Precisions. They're only like 2.5 mil each for only 4 accuracy less per crystal. But at the end game, you want to maximize it because even 8 accuracy is a huge deal, right? For my awakening weapon, I put the Hooms in there with the Garmots. Then I got the corrupted crystals on the offhand for that OP additional damage with the 10% crit damage. For my gloves, obviously we got Jin Vipers in here for that 40 accuracy. That's huge. For my chest, now here you could put those evasion crystals, but I have Hooms here because I need that force at Hooms and I'm running adamantines. If I move those Hooms over here instead of adamantines, I would put those evasion crystals here. For my helmet, I got Jin Harfias, because if you're running evasion build, you definitely want those Jin Harfias for the 40 evasion. For shoes, obviously the adamantine, you can switch it over for the Hooms like I said, or you can go a different route. I'm just gonna show you guys what I have right now. If you are going DR build, you could go pretty much the same crystal setup here. Instead of Jin Harfias, you'll go for the DR variant, same with the chest. If you have slots available here, you can go for pure DR. But overall, this is my crystal build. Whatever you see here, you can get the lower variant of. I just don't recommend going the lower variant of the adamantines. The reason I have adamantines is to get the 100% knockdown resistance for grinding in Ash Forest. So otherwise, pretty much you can get the bootleg version, like the cheaper versions of the Vipers and such. Like for example, it's pretty cheap. The Wands and Bonds, they're only 56 mil, whereas Jin Vipers are 300 mil. And as I mentioned earlier, BMC Precision for the weapons are pretty dope. Anyway, that's my crystal build. Here's the screenshot of the set effect. And here's a screenshot of the crystal so you can take a look at that. And yeah, that pretty much concludes this section. Let's move on to the rotations. All right, guys, in this section, we're going over my basic rotation for Succession Mystic. After the May 26th patch, the Martial Spirit Shard generation was increased, and this definitely plays into this rotation. But first, let's take a look at the add-ons, and then I'll explain a few things before starting, and finally we'll take a look at the rotation itself. All right, guys, here are the add-ons for the basic rotation. You can change these up however you want. These are just some basic recommendations which you can start off with and play around with it. So starting off, we got Soul Basher with monster AP and attack speed. We have Hidden Claw with minus DP and minus evasion. Hidden Claw isn't used often, but there is a use for it. That's why I have it here. But this is one of those slots that you can actually change up immediately. For Elbow Edge, we got minus DP and minus evasion as well. For Tornado Kick, we have accuracy and crit hit rate. It's important to have both accuracy and minus evasion add-ons in your rotation because at LVS spots and endgame spots, it really comes into play. For Rage Hammer, we have crit hit and back attack damage. Both of those are really good because Rage Hammer is a very hard hitting spender and we want to maximize the damage on it. Same with Prime Wave Orb. Crit hit damage and back attack damage there as well. And yeah, you can change these up wherever you feel fit, but this works out pretty well for me. So let's take a look at the rotation now. So this rotation changed after the May 26th patch. We're able to generate shards a lot quicker. So this rotation got updated a bit. The concept behind the basic rotation is you're building up 3 shards and then you're dumping it. So these are some of your builder skills, which will generate the shards, and these are your spenders. Rage Hammer, Wave Orb, Tiger Strike, and Sea Burial. So the order of priority for the spenders is going to be Rage Hammer, then Wave Orb, Tiger Strike, and then Sea Burial in that order in terms of priority for overall DPS. For generating 3 shards, I split it into 2 categories. One is the Soul Basher side, and the other is the Thunder Pound side. As you start the rotation, we're going to start off by buffing ourselves with Crouching Wolf, and then use Elbow Edge to debuff the target, and then we'll immediately press F to go into Soul Basher. But when we do that, it'll immediately hit Tornado Kick first, and then into Soul Basher. But later in the rotation, when you're back at the Soul Basher side, you'll do Soul Basher into Tornado Kick. This will generate our 3 shards. So when we do that, we'll immediately use one of our spenders. And then we'll go into Thunder Pound, into Fist Fury, and then the next spender. And then we'll go back into Soul Basher, Tornado Kick, and the next spender. So there's a reason why I have Hidden Claw in the add-ons. So if you want to go for Wave Orb after doing the generation with Soul Basher side, you'll hardcast into Wave Orb if you use it right after Tornado Kick. But what Tornado Kick does is it cancels out the backward motion for Hidden Claw. That's why we use Hidden Claw right after the Tornado Kick, to continue debuffing the target, as well as to use Wave Orb right after without the backward motion or the hard cast. So it's like this. So that's why we have Hidden Claw in the rotation. Otherwise, Elbow Edge is the preferred method to debuff the target with the DP debuff, which it comes with. So it's like minus 20 DP. And then on top of that, we have the add-ons. But because in order to weave that in, you can weave it in with the rotation I'm going to show you. It's just not as convenient or as fluid. But generally, most mobs don't survive long enough to go through the rotation this long to get to the situation where you're going to need to use Wave Orb after Soul Basher. All right, guys, enough of the disclaimers. First, I'm going to do the basic rotation, and then I'm going to talk through and explain it. So as you can see, I went through the rotation quite a few times to the point where I did all of these finishers and then some more. You could infinitely loop this rotation and keep going, but generally you're never standing that still and you're never going to be fighting mobs which can survive that much damage. That's just something to keep in mind, but here we go with the explanation. So to start off, whenever you're pulling the mobs, you can use Crouching Wolf, or you can hit them with Sea Burial or Somersault Kick, however you want. But once you have them grouped up, what you want to do is, if you don't have the Crouching Wolf buff, make sure you use that, or you can use Raging Wolf, or even Nature's Wrath, which gives you accuracy buff as well. So in higher spots like Elvia or Hadum, I use Nature's Wrath for the accuracy buff specifically, but always make sure you have your attack speed buff when you start. Then we'll go into elbow edge, into soul basher, into tornado kick. But when we hit the command for soul basher, the tornado kick is going to proc first. So that'll help generate the 3 shards. So here we go. Then we do our first spender, Rage Hammer, and go into Thunder Pound, Fist Fury, Wave Orb. Then back to the other side, into Roaring Tiger, and then Thunder Pound again into the other spender. Now, you can immediately go to Rage Hammer here, as that is the priority. The priority is Rage Hammer, Wave Orb, Roaring Tiger, and Sea Burial. However, sometimes there is a pause if I'm really close to the cooldown being up, so I didn't want to stop the damage rotation there. All right, one more time. So we're going to start off with Crouching Wolf, Elbow Edge, Tornado Kick, Soul Basher into Rage Hammer, Thunder Pound, Fist Fury into Wave Orb, Soul Basher, Tornado Kick into Roaring Tiger. Now, I'm going to do it with using Hidden Claw after Tornado Kick here in order to keep debuffing the target, as well as if you want to use Wave Orb right after. Now, I don't like doing that in general while grinding. I rather just silent step behind the target and use Wave Orb because that cancels out the casting time as well, and it positions me behind the target like this. So, just so you guys know how to do it though, here we go. Crouching Wolf, Elbow Edge, Tornado Kick, Soul Basher, Rage Hammer, Thunder Pound, Fist Fury, Roaring Tiger to skip Wave Orb, Soul Basher, Tornado Kick, Hidden Claw into Wave Orb. So what we did there was I just skipped the Wave Orb after the second one just to show you guys how it looks when you're weaving in Hidden Claw. It's pretty much right after the Tornado Kick, you're going to just use Hidden Claw. You'll stand in place, hit the target. You don't have to hold out the Hidden Claw because that's a DPS loss. You just need to debuff the target. So yeah, make it a judgment call. You can use both Elbow Edge and Hidden Claw. It's a personal preference, honestly. Only time I'm ever in a situation where I need to use it is if I'm just freestyling. Honestly, I don't really do proper rotations anymore. Depending on the positioning of the mobs, I know exactly which skills I'm going to use. You're not always going to have them perfectly packed up, and you're going to be constantly moving around and constantly repositioning yourself to be behind the target. That's going to be a really big DPS increase. Don't just face tank everything. Like, even though mass destruction might go on cooldown and you don't get the super armor, that doesn't matter. What you want to do it is just get the back attacks and just reposition yourself. Use it as many times as you need. Use a silent step to get behind the target for Wave Orb and stuff. It works really well, but yeah, this is just the basic rotation, but when you're actually pulling mobs and such, you want to play it according to the situation. All right, guys, now let's go over the advanced rotation. I definitely recommend you master the beginner rotation before trying this out because this takes a lot better muscle memory and knowledge of the class. If you're learning Mystic, then I recommend you stick with the beginner one. Once you're really comfortable with the class, then you can start using this one. So I got this one from the Striker Mystic Discord, and I modified it slightly with the add-ons and using my Rabam in the beginning because I'm grinding at orcs a lot on my Mystic, and I feel that these modifications I did really help out with the damage output. So yeah, let's get started. Here are my add-ons for the advanced rotation for Succession Mystic. You can change this up however you want, but this is just a general guideline, and this is what I use when grinding on Elvia spots. First, we have Soul Basher. I like having accuracy buff and evasion debuff on this one because it's very reliable to proc, and it's very important to have these for grinding at like red orcs and other Elvia spots. Next is Rage Hammer. I have back attack damage and crit hit damage on this skill because it's a very powerful finisher and I want to maximize the damage. Next, we have Elbow Edge. On this one, I like to keep extra damage to monsters and attack speed. I don't put minus 15 DP on this because generally in the beginning of the pull, the mobs aren't perfectly stacked up and Elbow Edge doesn't have a really good AoE. Then we have Tornado Kick. Here I like to use crit hit rate and minus 15 DP debuff. Next up is Prime Wave Orb. Here I like to have crit hit damage and back attack damage as well because it's a very powerful finisher. And lastly, we have Somersault Kick. I like to keep extra damage to monster and 7% attack speed. First, I'll demonstrate the rotation and then I'll explain it. All right, let's talk about the rotation now. First up, the opening. Whenever you open, you always start off with Crouching Wolf, or you can start off with Raging Wolf if it's off cooldown, but generally I just do Crouching Wolf. It's quicker. And I like to use Nature's Wrath when I'm grinding in Elvia spots or anywhere I need more accuracy at. The 12% accuracy is huge. Now, of course, in PvP, I like to go the full damage route and sometimes take Unbridled Wrath, but for PvE, I definitely try to keep this up. So start off with Crouching Wolf into Nature's Wrath, then Elbow's Edge, Tornado Kick into Soul Basher, Fist of Fury, Rage Hammer. That's the first part. Now, there's something you got to remember here, because when you start off with this rotation, you might find it difficult canceling into Fist of Fury after Soul Basher because it keeps going into Tornado Kick. There's a technique to canceling that out. So this is the full animation of Soul Basher and it goes into Tornado Kick. You notice she does a series of kicks, then does another kick, and then goes into Tornado Kick. So right after that second kick where she does a little shuffle and kicks the target, that's when you want to use Fist of Fury like this. That way you get that last hit damage, which is really good. Fist of Fury doesn't have any crit rate to it, but that last hit has a pretty sizable amount of damage behind it. All right, now we're going to start over and go through the rotation again, but I can't talk during the rotation because if you miss even a beat, it won't generate enough shards to do the second finisher. So let's just go through it once. Let me clear out these shards. All right. So during that second part, we go from Rage Hammer to Somersault Kick to Tornado Kick into Thunder Pound and do a Wave Orb. Now you can't miss a beat between these skills because if you do, you won't generate the last shard soon enough. So it takes a lot of muscle memory and just practice, but you'll get the hang of this eventually. So if you initially find that you're having only 2 shards after Thunder Pound and you don't have enough to spend it on the Wave Orb, it's fine, just keep practicing, you'll get there, but it's just a issue that I had when I was starting off as well. So here's the second part of it. And of course, at the end, the Fist Fury cancels with the Wave Orb and gives you the last hit. So that's really important. And immediately after, you hit Crouching Wolf again, and then you can start the rotation over. The second time you go through the rotation, instead of Wave Orb, you'll use Tiger Strike because Wave Orb is likely going to be on cooldown. And of course, we don't use Sea Burial because of the long animation and loss of DPS. So Prime Wave Orb is on a 20-second cooldown, where Roaring Tiger, while it isn't as strong, it's on a 7-second cooldown. Now, here are the advantages and disadvantages of using the advanced rotation. For advantages, it is the better DPS option of the 2 rotations I show you because it pulls out more damage in the shorter amount of time. And because you're using 2 Fist Fury cancels in there, it's a considerable amount of DPS increase over using Hidden Claw because it's a lot less damage. As for the drawbacks of using the advanced rotation, initially it's hard to pick up for a beginner player, so I recommend going with the first beginner rotation. Once you get the hang of the class and understand the class, then you can look into this one. And I feel it has more gaps. Now, when you start off, Elbow Edge obviously isn't protected, but going between Tornado Kick and Soul Basher and then the other skills, for some reason, I get CC'd quite often in between. Now, that just might be my own personal issue, but I do use this rotation when I'm grinding at LV and stuff. But for the most part, after you play Mystic long enough, depending on the position of the mobs and the situation, you'll use different rotations in and out. So I'm not just doing one rotation over and over. I do use this primarily, but if I need to modify it depending on the mob locations and how spread out they are, I will do so. And I'm always getting behind the mobs, trying to maximize the number of back hits I get for the finishers and such. So when going from Soul Basher to Fist Fury, that part, it took me a while to get the hang of because when I'm constantly moving around trying to reposition myself, I might not pay attention to my character's animation, but after you do it enough times, you'll just get the timing down and you don't have to even look at the character too closely. And finally, you can't miss a beat when you're doing this rotation because there are issues where I don't have 3 shards and sometimes the last shard will generate too slowly after I use my Wave Orb finisher, which was a bit annoying, but eventually I got the hang of the timing and I don't face that issue too often anymore. But yeah, overall, this is a great rotation to use. You can even use the first rotation I showed you, but this is if you're really min-maxing. And it's not a bad rotation, that first one. It's more protected and all, so that's great. Personal preference, I guess, and if you're really trying to min-max and trying to push the limit, then this is definitely a good one. All right, that's it for this video, guys. I hope you found it helpful, and if you did stick around till this time, thank you so much. Please do like, comment, and subscribe if you found it useful, and hit that bell icon so you get notifications when I go live. If you have any questions, you can drop by in my Twitch chat and ask me there, or you can find me in my Discord. Anyway, take it easy guys, and I'll catch you guys next time.